Abuja.
Let's spice up your day. Tune in to a breath of fresh air. It's all fun and games until it gets extra and better. 102.3 Extra, weekdays 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. with Oli J. Cheers to something new.
Has anyone told you you can advertise your business on radio for just 15,000 naira? Get a chance to talk your business for 25 minutes on The Entrepreneur.
Mondays to Thursdays, 3 p.m. on Eagles 102.3 FM Abuja. For more inquiries, call 090-9984-4433.
090-9984-4433.
The Entrepreneur. Talk your business for just 15,000 naira. This promo runs from August 31st to November 30. Hurry now.
Eagles Morning Rise. Eagles Morning Rise with
Show Prince. You're still onto your radio experience. You can count on Eagles Outlook. This morning, we're talking about the humanitarian crisis in the Northeast, which the U.S. May have categorized as one of the worst in the world at the moment. We're talking this morning with Mr. John Abu, who is the Executive Director, African Community and Environmental Health Initiative, joining us from the Northeast, where he's working, especially trying to mitigate the humanitarian crisis in that region. You can be a part of the conversation. Call 090-7353-0044 and 090-8766-8888. Your messages are welcome on 090-9705-4450. Now, Mr. Abu, earlier you mentioned that we don't have a homegrown solution to the crisis in the Northeast, especially the humanitarian crisis, where we've constantly relied on international donors to support the humanitarian crisis in that region. But then I recall that we've seen situations where the organized private sector has tried to support some, at some point, like the COVID-19, palliatives that were said, and the monies contributed by the organized private sector to cushion the effects of COVID-19 and resultant crisis. We saw that, there's some level of unaccountability. People have said over time that the monies did not go to the right people. In this case, what can we do to ensure that Nigerians, not just the government, but private individuals and organizations, are able to support the humanitarian crisis, not just in the Northeast, but also in the Northwest and the North Central regions, where there's a lot of increasing humanitarian crisis by the day? What can we do to ensure that we're able to support government and also the international donors as we see it?
Yeah, I agree with you on the issue of the COVID funds and the aftermath of accountability challenges that ensued afterwards. I think you're right on the issue of organized private sector being a focal partner around the malnutrition issues in the Northeast and the Northwest, as is currently ongoing. But I think also that it would do us good for us not to approach this issue as randomly as we did that of COVID. By random now, I mean that there should be a structure that will be self-auditing, will be self-appraising, and a structure that could be designed with such a framework that could allow for monitoring and evaluation, and also impact learning. That can be done. We have a lot of bright brains, bright minds in Nigeria, and we also have worked with international donor agencies that have brought in, very strong accountability frameworks around issues of funding and how funding is used. I'll give an example of United States Agency for International Development. They've done a lot of work, so much work around those who have been really challenged, by some of these issues. And currently, I'm privileged to be a partner of a project called Integrated Child Services and Social Support Award, that is for. Currently being implemented by Pro Health International with funding from USAID and Catholic Relief Service too. And part of the thematic focus of the project was actually to look at the plight of children living with HIV/AIDS or children affected by HIV/AIDS in the Northeast, especially Bauchi and Adamawa State, because we've come to see a nexus, between the conflict, between the displacement and HIV/AIDS response and HIV/AIDS support services, in the Northeast. And part of the work also was to see to the nutritional status of children, especially those that were affected by or that have been affected, by HIV/AIDS. And so far the statistics that is coming out from the communities, like I said, has been really there. We've seen severe acute malnutrition, and there's not been that strategic approach until this project came on board. And with the project coming on board, we've been able to have a metrics where we are able to identify these children, identify them not as a number but as a person, as individuals, try to create a profile around the issues that they have, identify the challenges of the household, and together with the household develop what we call a household care plan. With this care plan, we now say, okay, over a period of time, this is what the children in this household will need, and this is how this is the monitoring framework that we put in place to be sure that what we are doing is actually giving us the expected results, and over time the expected outcome that we need to see, and that is very, very clear, and as you are reporting that, of course, even if for someone who is not in the community, using the framework could be able to manage and see, in real time what the situation of the household looks like. So in summary, what I'm trying to say is that yes, organized private sector is very important to the response on malnutrition, but there should be a very articulated, a clear monitoring and evaluation framework. Not just that monies are coming in, who these monies go to meet. And these people the money goes to meet shouldn't be numbers. It's not 1, 10, 20, 300, 1,000. No. Let them be persons, individuals with faces, that can be tracked and their nutritional status monitored, and with time perhaps we should be able to also inculcate the strategy of bringing in independent monitors to be able to also track what is being done. If we had that at the COVID level, I think some of the funding challenges we had would have been minimized. But you cannot give one person money and you want him to spend the money, and you want the same person to manage the money and the same person to report on the money. Certainly you are giving room for fraud and mismanagement and misappropriation.
Very well said. Now let's look at reports that we've gotten that even government social interventions, and say for instance NEMA, coming up with relief materials, and these materials not getting to the people as those who are set to work with the IDPs at the IDP camps end up looting food stuff and all the stuff that's supposed to go to the IDPs. As a person who's working on ground in that region, what can you tell us about that? Is there any truth to that report?
Yes, I would not be on air to say that there are no incidences of misapplication. I may not want to use the word misappropriation, but let me say misapplication, of resources that is meant, for those who are actually really in need of it. There have been incidences, there have been situations and news that we've heard around that, in the past, and I think, if I'm not mistaken, I'll stand to be corrected, that certain light has been, shown on it once upon some time ago, when items that are meant for the IDPs, are left in the warehouses sometimes, and they get spoiled in the warehouses. Or sometimes when these items come out of the warehouses, you get to see that they're no longer, you are no longer usable, or you cannot consume it anymore because of the bad state that they've been. And these are issues that we are very familiar with. I don't really need to start bringing in specific examples, but we know this. We know how this has worked. We saw how this also worked during the period of the NSAS, where certain warehouses were opened and they were looted all over the country. And those are some of the examples of things that are meant for very vulnerable population being kept away from those populations for reasons political, for reasons personal, for reasons criminal, and it doesn't get to those who it's meant to get to. And for me, I also would have loved to have seen a situation where justice is done. The legal system is brought into bear, and those who are responsible for these things are made to pay for them. Made to pay legally for them, so that they set example to others not to attempt to do stuff like that. The examples are bound, and I think it's also very sad that those of us who have been entrusted with the care and responsibility of ensuring, that the most vulnerable amongst us, especially children and women, don't get to enjoy what that is meant for them. So I think it's there, it's true, and the authorities, the appropriate authorities, to rise up to the occasion, and make clear examples of some of those that are caught doing this.
That's a sad situation. The conversation continues here. You want to be a part of it? Keep those numbers close. You may be needed them shortly. 090-7353-0044 and 090-8766-8888. Send messages to 090-9705-4450. That's for WhatsApp and SMS. We need to be our brother's keepers and ensure that those around us do not continue to suffer, even when we have so much.
They all are champions.
I am Aquaman.
But there are legends among champions.
I'll be back.
Hold your breath as the stars battle on Power Hour. Wednesday at 1 p.m. on Eagles 102.3 FM Abuja.
This is gonna be fun.
Power Hour. You win or you lose.
Who wants to be king?
The sun's up and so should your radio. Tune in to the sunny side with your one and only Itado and your girl Kika. Weekdays 2 to 6 p.m. Seriously? The Sunny Side Show. The Sunny Side Show. Tune in, you know you want to.
A stitch in time saves 9. Scratch that. How about saving the 9 for a stitch in time after all? Fashion keeps evolving. Trendy Stitches brings you the ladies and gentlemen trends, the runway, corporate space, couture, hair, makeup, and definitely do's and don'ts. If it's fashion, we're talking about it. Trendy Stitches every Wednesday, 11 a.m. with Olije on 102.3 Extra. Trendy Stitches, make your everyday a runway.
Eagles Morning Rise. Eagles Morning Rise with
Natural Prince.
You're on to Eagles Outlook on your radio experience. You can count on Eagles 102.3. Time now is 9:41, and we're talking this morning about the worsening humanitarian crisis in the Northeast, which has been described as one of the worst humanitarian crises in the world at the moment, and most challenging and complex one. That's according to what the U.S. is saying. Our guest this morning is Mr. John Abu. Mr. John Abu is the Executive Director, African Community and Environmental Health Initiative. He's joining us via phone all the way from the Northeast. You can be a part of the conversation. Call 090-7353-0044 and 090-8766-8888. Make your contributions now as we're about to wrap up the show. Call us and be a part of it. You can send a message to 090-9705-4450. Now, Mr. Abu, we were talking earlier, and you mentioned that, well, we need to have a system where that is, that can be monitored and evaluated over time, so as to check the loopholes and plug everywhere where there's a leakage. You mentioned something that really touched me, that really bothers me as a person. We have a situation where food items are supposed to be distributed to people, but they're locked up in warehouses until they become bad, to the point where people can no longer consume them. What does that say about our humanity? What does that say about, the processes of distribution of these food items? We've seen those things happen over time. Rice turns black. People can no longer eat them. What's the point of storing or putting away these food items until the point where they get bad and inconsumable before they're opened up for people to see or to even get?
If you allow me, just to be a bit humorous this morning, in the local Nigerian palace, like in the pidgin English, you say that if you ask me, who I will ask? How would I ask? How do I get to understand the psychology, the mindset of people storing food that is meant for vulnerable people until a state where the food is no longer eatable? It's crazy. It's really mind-blowing. It's absolutely, immoral, criminal, and unacceptable. As religious people as we call ourselves to be, we should be able to, emphasize our sense of empathy. We should be able to understand that behind the numbers that we turn out are human beings, real human beings, breathing people who are alive, who feel, who think, who go through situations. So we may have to begin to learn, to give a face to statistics. We begin to learn to give, humanity to numbers. Let's not be too driven by the numbers of this, numbers of that, and all that. Let's begin to cross over to the phases behind the numbers, the humanity behind the numbers. By the time we begin to do that, and perhaps begin to have, a heightened sense of empathy, getting to put ourselves in the shoes of others, just perhaps we may begin to understand that our actions, are completely very wrong and, unacceptable.
Absolutely. Let's bring in a caller.
Should be given to them.
09073530044. Hello, good morning. We're lost connection. Try to call us back. That would be good. 09073530044 and 09087668888. Send a message to 09097054450. These are human beings we're talking about. These are people who could be your relatives, who could be cousins, brothers, sisters, anybody who are going through these things, who are facing severe hunger in the Northeast. Hello, good morning.
Yeah, please, this is Paul calling back.
Paul, quickly, please.
Yes, the problem I also have is the food items that are seized from maybe smugglers and some other people at the borders by customs that are sent to these IDPs. How healthy are those food items? Because they are eatable. And then another thing is that I think government has to decentralize the distribution of these food items. From the federal government, move them more to the state, move them more to the local government, and to the people as soon as possible, so that people will be eating healthy food. But I think most of this food needs to be tested before giving it to the people. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Paul. Very, very valid points there. Paul is talking about, having a situation where the food sent to the IDPs and people in need is tested to ensure that they are safe for consumption. Because he mentioned the fact that some of the food smuggled into the country, seized by customs, may be redirected to the IDPs. Before you respond to that, let's bring in another caller. Hello, good morning.
Hello, good morning.
Good morning. Friday is good to have you. Quickly, please.
God bless you.
Good.
Yeah, thank you. You see, what happened in the North is I don't know what they can stop it, because remember, even the last time I advertised something, say insecurity in the North, you can easily take the 120 years, I will not stop. What is and a president from the Northeast, a lot of strong leaders from the Northeast now, they can stop it. Even if they cannot stop
how the country is right now. Because when Buhari came for power, at the international community, contributed a lot to build the Northeast. A lot of money was going for it, but they don't know what doesn't happen with that money. The Northeast, they contributed the Northeast and Chibok. You don't know the way that money is going. So, if they are products from the Northeast, who run the whole Nigeria,